A lone forest ranger rescues a group of injured dogs during a devastating storm. Now, isolated and without resources, man and animals fight for survival. As the situation becomes critical, the poor forest ranger loses hope. But amidst the chaos, what he discovered about the dogs left him completely paralyzed. As the first light of dawn breaks over the lush Redwood National Park in Northern California, a gentle mist clings to the towering trees, creating an ethereal atmosphere. The crisp morning air carries the scent of pine and damp earth, a familiar aroma to John, the dedicated forest ranger who calls these woods home. John's weathered cabin, nestled in a small clearing, stands as a testament to his years of service to the forest. Its wooden walls, darkened with age, blend seamlessly into the surrounding wilderness. A thin tendril of smoke rises from the chimney, dissipating into the canopy above. The forest awakens slowly around John as he steps onto his porch, his boots creaking against the old wooden planks. He adjusts his forest green uniform, emblazoned with the park's emblem, and reaches for his well-worn backpack. Today marks the beginning of his routine morning patrol, a task he's performed countless times over the years. As John sets off down the narrow trail leading from his cabin, the dense undergrowth brushes against his legs. Ferns unfurl in the growing light, and the occasional snap of a twig under his feet punctuates the otherwise silent forest. He breathes deeply, savoring the tranquility of these early hours before the park fills with hikers and nature enthusiasts. Little does John know that this ordinary morning is about to take an extraordinary turn. The familiar sounds of the forest, the gentle rustling of leaves, the distant call of a Steller's jay, are suddenly interrupted by something unexpected. A series of desperate barks echo through the trees, breaking the peaceful ambience and catching John's attention. His instincts, honed by years in the wilderness, tell him that something is amiss in his beloved forest. John Adams, a 55-year-old forest ranger, stands tall and lean against the backdrop of the majestic redwoods. His weathered face, etched with laugh lines and a salt and pepper beard, tells the story of a life lived outdoors. John's eyes, a striking forest green, scan the wilderness with a mixture of reverence and protective instinct. Despite his rugged appearance, there's a gentleness in his movements, born from years of observing and respecting nature. As he moves towards the source of the barking, John's mind races. He's encountered many animals in his 2 decades as a ranger, but something about these distressed sounds tugs at his heart. John has always had a soft spot for animals, though he's maintained a professional distance, understanding the importance of preserving the natural order of the forest. Unknown to many, John harbors a deep-seated fear of unfamiliar dogs, stemming from a childhood incident. This fear has always made him hesitant around stray or wild canines, a secret he's kept from his colleagues. However, his sense of duty and compassion often overrides this fear when animals are in distress. As he pushes through a thicket of ferns, John's thoughts drift to his own dog, Max, a loyal golden retriever waiting for him back at the cabin. The companionship of Max has been a comfort during long, solitary nights in the forest and has somewhat eased his general unease around unfamiliar dogs. As John approaches the source of the distressed barks, he encounters a group of lost dogs, clearly in need of help. The pack consists of various breeds, all looking worn and weary. Among them, a female border collie stands out, her intelligent eyes meeting John's with a mix of wariness and desperation. Her swollen belly indicates she's pregnant, adding urgency to the situation. Beside her, a large, intimidating Rottweiler guards the group, his powerful stance softened by evident exhaustion and injury. A pair of beagle mixes, their tails tucked between their legs, huddle close to the border collie, while a scrappy terrier of indeterminate breed paces nervously at the edge of the group. John's heart races as he takes in the scene, his ingrained fear of unfamiliar dogs battling with his desire to help. He notices cuts and scrapes on their bodies, suggesting they've been struggling through the dense forest for some time. The dog's ribs are visible beneath their matted fur, a clear sign of hunger and hardship. As he cautiously approaches, John speaks in a low, soothing voice, remembering the techniques he's learned for approaching wildlife. "Easy there, fellas," he murmurs, his tone gentle despite his racing heart. "I'm here to help." As John cautiously extends his hand towards the dogs, a sudden commotion erupts from the undergrowth. The pregnant border collie yelps in pain, her leg caught in a hidden snare trap. The other dogs bark frantically, circling their distressed companion. John's ranger instincts kick in, momentarily overriding his fear. He quickly assesses the situation, recognizing the illegal trap as the work of poachers who've been troubling the park recently. The border collie's predicament adds a new layer of urgency to the already tense situation. Without hesitation, John reaches for his multi-tool, determined to free the trapped dog. However, as he approaches, the Rottweiler interposes himself between John and the border collie, baring his teeth in a protective snarl. The air is thick with tension as John realizes he must somehow convey his intentions to help. In this crucial moment, John must find a way to gain the dog's trust, free the trapped border collie, and figure out how to help this unexpected group of forest inhabitants. The decisions he makes in the next few minutes will not only impact the dog's survival, but also challenge his own fears and potentially change the course of his life as a forest ranger. John takes a deep breath, steadying himself against the surge of adrenaline. He knows he needs to act fast to help the trapped border collie, but the protective Rottweiler presents a formidable obstacle. Drawing from years of experience in wildlife management, John decides to try a different approach. Slowly, he lowers himself to a crouch, making himself appear less threatening. "It's okay, big guy," he says softly to the Rottweiler, maintaining eye contact but avoiding any sudden movements. "I'm here to help your friend." To John's surprise, the Rottweiler's aggressive stance softens slightly. The dog's brown eyes, filled with a mixture of fear and intelligence, study John intently. John realizes that this isn't just a group of strays. These dogs have formed a tight-knit family, looking out for one another in the unforgiving forest. Encouraged by the Rottweiler's hesitation, John carefully reaches into his backpack and pulls out a packet of jerky, his usual trail snack. The scent immediately catches the attention of all the dogs, their noses twitching in interest. John tosses a piece towards the Rottweiler, who sniffs it cautiously before devouring it. This small act of kindness seems to shift the dynamic. The Rottweiler's tail gives a tentative wag, and he takes a step back, allowing John closer to the trapped border collie. John's fear begins to ebb as he recognizes the dog's capacity for trust and understanding. As John approaches the border collie, he speaks in soothing tones, explaining his actions as if she could understand every word. To his amazement, the pregnant dog remains calm, her intelligent eyes fixed on him with an almost human-like comprehension. With gentle hands, John begins to work on freeing the border collie's leg from the snare. As he does so, he can't help but marvel at the resilience of these animals and the bonds they've formed. He finds himself wondering about their story, how they came to be in the forest, and what hardships they've endured together. As John works to free the border collie, he begins to notice the unique personalities of each dog. The Rottweiler, initially intimidating, reveals a gentle nature as he hovers protectively near the border collie. John decides to call him Guardian, acknowledging his role in the group. The pregnant border collie, despite her predicament, exudes a calm intelligence. Her patience as John works on the snare is remarkable. He names her Hope, inspired by the resilience she shows in her delicate condition. The scrappy terrier, constantly alert and checking their surroundings, earns the name Scout. His vigilance seems to complement Guardian's protective nature perfectly. In this moment, John's fear of unfamiliar dogs seems to have evaporated. He finds himself marveling at the trust these animals have placed in him, despite their obvious hardships. Their individual personalities and the clear bonds between them remind John of the complex social structures he's observed in wolf packs during his years as a ranger. A pang of empathy strikes John as he realizes the challenges these domesticated animals must have faced in the wild. Their lean bodies and various scrapes and cuts tell a story of survival against the odds. Yet, their willingness to accept his help speaks to an enduring trust in humans. As John ponders how to proceed, he knows that his decision will impact not just the dogs, but his own life as well. The connection he feels forming with this unlikely family is unlike anything he's experienced in his years of working with wildlife. John's immediate challenge is getting the injured and exhausted dog safely back to his cabin. The pregnant border collie, Hope, can walk, but is clearly struggling. Guardian, the Rottweiler, seems strong enough to make the journey, but John worries about the smaller dogs, Hansel, Gretel, and Scout, who appear fatigued and malnourished. As John contemplates this logistical puzzle, a distant rumble of thunder signals an approaching storm. The weather, normally unpredictable in the redwood forest, adds a new layer of urgency to their situation. John knows they need to reach shelter before the rain makes the already treacherous forest floor even more dangerous. He fashions a makeshift sling from his jacket to carry the smallest dog, Scout. John then encourages Hope to lean on him for support as they begin their slow journey through the dense undergrowth. Guardian walks close by, occasionally nudging the Beagle twins, Hansel and Gretel, to keep them moving. As they trek through the forest, John faces another dilemma. His usual route back to the cabin involves a narrow bridge over a swift stream, a crossing that might prove too risky for the weakened dogs. He decides to take a longer but safer path, knowing it will add at least an hour to their journey. The group's progress is painfully slow. John finds himself constantly checking on the dogs, ensuring none are left behind. The forest, usually a place of comfort for John, now seems full of potential dangers: exposed roots that could trip tired paws, low-hanging branches that could scratch already injured bodies. Halfway through their journey, Hope suddenly stops, her body tense. John realizes with a jolt of panic that she might be going into labor. The thought of delivering puppies in the middle of the forest with a storm approaching fills him with dread. He's assisted in wildlife births before, but never with domesticated dogs, and certainly not under these conditions. As if understanding the gravity of the situation, Guardian lets out a low, encouraging bark. The other dogs perk up, seeming to draw strength from their canine leader's call. As they continue their arduous journey, the first drops of rain begin to fall, pattering softly on the canopy above. John knows they're in a race against time, needing to reach the cabin before the storm hits in full force and before Hope's condition deteriorates further. As the rain intensifies, the forest floor becomes slick and treacherous. John's boots sink into the soft earth, making each step a struggle. He watches anxiously as the dogs navigate the increasingly muddy terrain, their paws slipping occasionally on wet leaves and moss-covered rocks. Suddenly, a loud crack of thunder booms overhead, startling the group. Scout, the small terrier in John's makeshift sling, begins to squirm in panic. In his attempt to calm the dog, John momentarily loses his footing on a slippery root. He stumbles, nearly dropping Scout and jostling Hope in the process. Guardian quickly moves to John's side, offering support and steadying him. This near fall shakes John's confidence. He realizes that his fatigue is becoming dangerous, not just for him, but for the dogs relying on him. He needs to find a way to reinvigorate himself and the canine group for the final stretch of their journey. As they push forward, John notices that Hansel and Gretel, the Beagle twins, are falling behind. Their small bodies are shivering from the cold rain, and their steps are becoming increasingly unsteady. John knows he can't carry them all, and the thought of leaving any behind is unthinkable. In this moment of desperation, John remembers an old ranger's cabin that should be nearby. It's not as comfortable or well-equipped as his own, but it would provide immediate shelter from the storm. The dilemma now is whether to push on to his cabin, where he has supplies to properly care for the dogs, or to seek immediate refuge in the closer but more primitive shelter. Time is running out as Hope's contractions seem to be intensifying. Her quiet whimpers of discomfort are becoming more frequent, and John notices Guardian's worried glances toward her. The decision weighs heavily on John. The safety of the pregnant border collie and her unborn puppies hangs in the balance. As John contemplates their options, he spots movement in the underbrush ahead. His ranger instincts kick in, alert to potential danger. To his alarm, he recognizes the sleek form of a mountain lion slinking through the trees, likely driven to lower elevations by the storm. The dogs sense the predator too. Guardian's hackles rise, and he positions himself protectively in front of the group. Even in their weakened state, the dog's pack mentality emerges, with Hansel and Gretel huddling close to Hope, while Scout lets out a warning bark from John's arms. Udraid! John knows that in normal circumstances, the mountain lion would likely avoid such a large group, but with the storm and the scent of vulnerable animals, the predator might see an opportunity. He needs to find a way to safely navigate the group past this new threat while managing the various needs of the dogs and the imminent birth of the puppies. In this tense moment, John realizes that his fear of unfamiliar dogs has been completely overshadowed by his protective instinct for this makeshift family. He must now draw on all his ranger training and newfound connection with the dogs to overcome these compounding challenges and bring everyone to safety. Faced with the looming threat of the mountain lion, John's ranger training kicks into high gear. He knows that making noise is crucial to deter the predator. "Hey!" he shouts forcefully, his voice echoing through the rain-soaked forest. He gestures for the dogs to stay close as he continues to make loud, authoritative sounds. Guardian, picking up on John's strategy, joins in with deep, booming barks. The unified front of human and canine noise seems to give the mountain lion pause. John sees the big cat's ears flick back and forth, assessing the situation. Taking advantage of the predator's hesitation, John begins to slowly back the group away, maintaining eye contact with the mountain lion while continuing to make noise. He's acutely aware of Hope's labored breathing beside him and knows they need to find shelter urgently. As they retreat, John spots a hollow formed by the massive roots of an ancient redwood. It's not ideal, but it could provide temporary protection from both the storm and the mountain lion. He guides the dogs towards this natural shelter, speaking in low, reassuring tones. Once they reach the hollow, John positions himself at the entrance, creating a human barrier between the dogs and any potential threat. He watches as the mountain lion slinks away into the undergrowth, likely deciding that this unusual group is too much trouble. With the immediate danger past, John turns his attention back to the dogs. Hope has settled into the driest part of the hollow, her sides heaving with increasingly frequent contractions. Guardian positions himself protectively near her, while Hansel and Gretel huddle together for warmth. Scout, still in John's arms, whines softly. John knows he needs to act fast. The hollow provides temporary shelter, but it's not suitable for delivering puppies or caring for the weakened dogs. He needs to get them to proper shelter, and soon. As he works, John's mind races through his basic veterinary training. He knows he's not equipped to handle a complicated birth, but he can at least make Hope more comfortable. He removes his outer shirt, still relatively dry, and lays it out for her to nest on. Guardian, sensing the urgency of the situation, begins to pace anxiously at the entrance of the hollow. His protective instincts seem to be warring with his trust in John. Recognizing the need to keep the large dog calm, John assigns him a task. John then turns his attention to the other dogs. He breaks out the last of his trail mix, offering small handfuls to Hansel, Gretel, and Scout to help boost their energy. As the dogs eat, John uses the opportunity to check them for any serious injuries he might have missed earlier. Meanwhile, Hope's labor intensifies. Her quiet whimpers turn into more pronounced pants, and John realizes that the birth is imminent. Drawing on every scrap of knowledge he can remember, he prepares himself to assist if necessary. In this moment, As he kneels beside the laboring dog in a makeshift shelter in the midst of a storm, John is struck by the extraordinary turn his day has taken. His fear of unfamiliar dogs seems a distant memory now, replaced by a deep sense of responsibility and connection to these animals. As the first puppy begins to emerge, John takes a deep breath, steeling himself for the challenge ahead. He knows that the next few hours will test him in ways he never expected, but he's determined to see this unexpected family through their ordeal. The storm outside reaches its peak as Hope's labor progresses. Thunder crashes overhead and wind howls through the ancient redwoods, creating an ominous backdrop to the tense scene within the hollow. John, his hands shaking slightly, prepares himself to help deliver the puppies. As the first puppy emerges, John's ranger training kicks in. He gently clears the puppy's airways and helps guide it towards its mother. Hope, despite her exhaustion, immediately begins to clean her newborn. The sight fills John with a mix of awe and anxiety. While this first birth seems to have gone smoothly, he knows there are likely more puppies to come, and complications could arise at any moment. Guardian's low growl suddenly cuts through the sound of the storm and Hope's labored breathing. John's head snaps up to see the Rottweiler intensely focused on something outside their shelter. Through the curtain of rain, John catches glimpses of movement in the underbrush. His heart races as he realizes they're not alone. As John strains to identify the new threat, Hope lets out a pained yelp. The second puppy is coming, but something seems wrong. The border collie is struggling more than before, her body tense with effort. John realizes with a jolt of fear that the puppy might be in breach position. In this moment, John faces a harrowing dilemma. He needs to help Hope with what could be a dangerous delivery, but he also needs to investigate the potential threat outside. The safety of the entire group hangs in the balance, and John feels the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. Turning back to the laboring dog, John takes a deep breath and recalls everything he knows about difficult births. With gentle but firm hands, he begins to assist Hope, all while keeping an ear tuned to the sounds outside. As John works to help deliver the breech puppy, the other dogs react to the tense atmosphere. Hansel and Gretel whimper softly, huddling closer together, while Scout paces nervously at the edge of their shelter. The first newborn puppy mewls weakly, seeking its mother's warmth. Just as John feels the second puppy begin to emerge, a loud snarl rips through the air outside. Guardian's answering bark is immediate and fierce. The sounds of a scuffle erupt, and John's mind races with terrible possibilities. Has the mountain lion returned? Or is it something else, perhaps other predators drawn by the scent of the birth? With his hands literally full with the delicate task of guiding the breech puppy, John is torn between his duty to Hope and his need to protect the group from external threats. The cries of the dogs, the howling wind, and the sounds of conflict outside create a cacophony of danger and urgency. In this crucial moment, John knows that his next actions could determine the survival of not just Hope and her puppies, but all the dogs who have come to trust and rely on him. The storm rages on, both literally outside their shelter and figuratively in John's racing mind as he grapples with the multiple crises unfolding around him. With a final, careful maneuver, John successfully delivers the breech puppy. Relief washes over him as the tiny creature begins to wiggle and cry, but his reprieve is short-lived. The sounds of struggle outside have intensified, and Guardian's barks have taken on a pained quality that sends a chill down John's spine. "Hang on, Guardian!" John calls out, his voice cracking with emotion. He quickly ensures that Hope and her two puppies are stable before scrambling to the entrance of their makeshift shelter. What he sees makes his blood run cold. Guardian is locked in a fierce battle with not one, but two coyotes. The loyal Rottweiler is holding his own, but he's outnumbered and already sporting several bloody gashes. The coyotes, driven by hunger and the scent of the newborn puppies, are relentless in their attack. John knows he has to act fast. He grabs a sturdy branch from the ground and, without a second thought for his own safety, rushes into the fray. "Hey, get out of here!" he roars, swinging the branch at the coyotes. As John stands his ground, keeping himself between the coyotes and the shelter, he hears a commotion behind him. To his horror, he realizes that Hope has followed him out, leaving her newborns behind. The faithful border collie, despite her weakened state, has come to join the defense of her family. "Oh no, Hope, go back!" John cries, but it's too late. The appearance of the post-labor dog, trailing the scent of birth, sends the coyotes into a frenzy. They launch a renewed attack, forcing John, Guardian, and Hope into a desperate defensive circle. Inside the shelter, the puppy's cries grow more insistent. John can hear Scout barking frantically while Hansel and Gretel howl in distress. The cacophony of sounds, the storm, the fighting, the terrified dogs, creates a nightmarish symphony. As one coyote lunges at Hope, John intercepts it with a powerful swing of his branch. The impact jars his arms, nearly causing him to lose his grip. Guardian, summoning a last burst of strength, tackles the other coyote, his jaws clamping down on its leg. In this chaotic moment, with rain lashing at his face and the snarls of battling animals filling his ears, John makes a split-second decision. He lets out the loudest, most primal yell he can muster, a sound born of fear, determination, and a fierce protectiveness for the dogs in his care. The sheer volume and raw emotion of John's cry seemed to pierce through the storm. The coyotes, already battered and now faced with this new, terrifying sound, finally begin to retreat. They slink back into the underbrush, casting one last hungry look at the group before disappearing into the rain-soaked forest. As the immediate danger passes, John turns to assess the damage. Guardian is bleeding from several wounds, and Hope is trembling with exhaustion. The puppies inside are wailing, and John knows he needs to get everyone back to safety quickly. But as he looks at the battered but unbowed dogs beside him, he realizes that they've passed through a crucible together and forged an unbreakable bond in the process. As John hurriedly ushers the dogs back into the shelter, tending to Guardian's wounds with strips torn from his own shirt, a beam of light suddenly cuts through the darkness. For a moment, John freezes, fearing another threat. But then he hears a familiar voice calling out. Sarah appears through the rain, her flashlight illuminating the scene. Her eyes widen as she takes in the sight of John, bloodied and muddy, surrounded by the dogs. "What on earth?" she begins, but then her gaze falls on Hope and the newborn puppies. Understanding dawns on her face. Sarah kneels down, gently reaching out to pat Guardian. The big dog, to John's surprise, wags his tail in recognition. "We've been looking for these dogs for weeks," she explains. "They escaped from a truck accident on the highway at the edge of the park. The owner was transporting them to a shelter when the crash happened. We thought they'd never survived out here for so long." The revelation hits John like a thunderbolt. These weren't just random strays or abandoned pets. They were survivors, lost and trying to find their way home. He looks at the dogs with new eyes, marveling at their resilience and the bonds they've formed. "But that's not all," Sarah continues, her voice taking on an odd tone. She hesitates, looking at John with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. "The thing is, John, these aren't just any shelter dogs. They're part of a special program. A program I think you might be very interested in." Sarah takes a deep breath. "It's a new initiative, John. These dogs were being transported to a special training facility. They're part of a program designed to pair rescue dogs with people like you." "Not forest rangers," Sarah clarifies. "The idea is to train these dogs to assist in search and rescue operations, wildlife tracking, and even in deterring poachers. But more than that, they're meant to be companions for rangers who spend long periods in isolated areas." The weight of this revelation settles over John. He looks at the dogs, at Guardian's protective stance, Hope's intelligence, Scout's alertness, and the way Hansel and Gretel work as a team. Suddenly, their varied skills and the strength of their bond make perfect sense. Sarah nods, a smile breaking across her face. John, your encounter with these dogs wasn't just chance. It was a test, and you passed with flying colors. The way you've cared for them, protected them, and bonded with them, it's exactly what the program was designed for. John's mind reels. His initial fear of the dogs, the challenges they've faced together, the trust they've built, it all takes on new meaning. He realizes that in helping these dogs, he's also been healing something within himself. As the storm begins to subside outside, John feels a profound shift within himself. The forest, his longtime home, suddenly feels different, fuller, more alive. He looks at the dogs, his unexpected family, and for the first time in years, he feels truly complete. In the days following the storm, John's cabin becomes a hub of activity. With Sarah's help, they transport the dogs to safety, setting up a temporary recovery area for Hope and her puppies. Veterinarians from the Wildlife Center arrive to treat Guardian's wounds and check on the health of all the dogs. As the dogs heal and regain their strength, John finds himself at the center of a transformative process. He works closely with the park administration to formally integrate the dog program into the ranger service. His experience becomes a case study, helping to refine the training protocols for both dogs and rangers. Guardian, true to his name, becomes John's constant companion on patrols. The Rottweiler's protective instincts and keen senses prove invaluable in tracking wildlife and deterring poachers. Hope, once recovered, shows an incredible aptitude for search and rescue operations, her intelligence and agility making her a natural fit for the role. In days, Hansel and Gretel, with their exceptional noses, are trained in scent detection, becoming crucial in locating lost hikers and identifying illegal plant harvesting. Scout, the scrappy terrier, surprises everyone with his talent for squeezing into tight spaces, making him perfect for inspecting campgrounds and assisting in minor rescue operations. As for Hope's puppies, they become the first generation of dogs born into the program, symbolizing the bright future ahead for this innovative initiative. The success of John's team ripples through the park service, inspiring similar programs in national parks across the country. The story of the lost dogs and the ranger who saved them captures public imagination, bringing positive attention and support to conservation efforts. John's promotion to lead the Wildlife Protection Unit allows him to implement broader changes. He establishes new protocols for handling wildlife encounters, emphasizing non-lethal methods and understanding animal behavior. His first-hand experience with the dogs gives him unique insights into animal psychology, which he applies to his work with wild species. The presence of the dogs in the park also has unexpected benefits. Visitors are drawn to the heartwarming sight of rangers working alongside their canine partners, creating opportunities for education about conservation and responsible pet ownership. The dogs become ambassadors for the park, helping to foster a deeper connection between humans and nature. As for the coyotes and other predators, John implements a new strategy. Instead of seeing them as threats, he works to understand their behavior and find ways for humans and wildlife to coexist safely. The dogs play a crucial role in this, their presence often enough to deter wildlife from entering campgrounds without the need for more drastic measures. John's fear of unfamiliar dogs is now a distant memory. In its place is a deep respect for the intelligence and emotional capacity of animals, both domesticated and wild. This newfound understanding not only makes him a better ranger, but also a more compassionate person, attuned to the delicate balance of the ecosystem he's sworn to protect. As the seasons change in the Redwood National Park, John finds himself reflecting on the profound impact the dogs have had on his life. Sitting on the porch of his cabin, with Guardian loyally at his feet, he watches Hope guiding her now-grown puppies through a training exercise in the clearing. The transformation in John is evident to all who know him. Once a solitary figure, he now exudes a warmth and openness that draws both people and animals to him. His connection with the dogs has softened the edges of his personality, bringing out a nurturing side he never knew he possessed. John thinks back to the stormy night when it all began, marveling at how close he came to letting his fear override his compassion. The memory of helping Hope deliver her puppies in the midst of danger still fills him with a sense of awe and purpose. His relationship with each dog has evolved into something unique and precious. Guardian, once intimidating, is now his most trusted companion, a steady presence that gives John confidence in the face of any challenge. Hope's intelligence and maternal instincts continue to amaze him, her gentle guidance of her offspring mirroring the way John now mentors young rangers. Hansel and Gretel, with their playful antics, bring laughter and joy to even the toughest days. And Scout, the tiny terrier with the big personality, never fails to remind John of the courage and resilience that can be found in the most unexpected packages. John often finds himself speaking to groups of visitors, sharing the tale of how a pack of lost dogs changed his life and the park. He sees the wonder in children's eyes as they interact with the dogs, and the renewed sense of connection to nature in adults who hear his story. It's in these moments that John fully grasps the ripple effect of compassion. The once feared forest has become a place of healing for John. The nightmares of his childhood dog encounter have been replaced by dreams of running through the redwoods with his canine family. He now understands that his fear was never truly about the dogs, but about feeling powerless in the face of the unknown. John's relationship with Sarah has also deepened. Her role in bringing the dog program to the park and her unwavering support during the challenging early days have created a bond of trust and mutual respect. Together, they've become a formidable team in advocating for innovative approaches to conservation. As John watches the sun set over the towering redwoods with the sound of the dogs playing in the background, he feels a profound sense of peace. He realizes that in saving the dogs, he also saved a part of himself. The forest, once a place of solitude, now feels like home in the truest sense, filled with family, purpose, and unconditional love. As twilight descends on the Redwood National Park, John gathers his canine team for their evening patrol. The sight of the ranger and his dogs moving in perfect harmony through the ancient forest has become a symbol of hope and unity for all who witness it. Guardian leads the way, his powerful presence a deterrent to any potential threat. Hope follows closely, her keen senses alert for any signs of distress in the forest. Hansel and Gretel work in tandem, their noses to the ground, while Scout darts ahead, checking hidden nooks with boundless energy. As they reach a clearing, John pauses, taking in the majestic view of the redwoods silhouetted against the fading light. He reflects on the journey that brought him here, from a solitary ranger haunted by fear to the leader of this extraordinary team. The dogs gather around him, sensing his moment of reflection. John kneels down, embracing them one by one, feeling the strength of their bond. He realizes that these animals have not only helped him become a better ranger, but have also taught him profound lessons about trust, resilience, and the healing power of connection. As the first stars appear in the sky, John stands, ready to continue their patrol. He knows that whatever challenges tomorrow may bring, he will face them with courage, compassion, and the unwavering support of his remarkable canine family. With a soft whistle and a hand signal, John leads his team deeper into the forest, their silhouettes merging with the shadows of the ancient trees. In this moment, he feels a deep sense of belonging and purpose, knowing that together they are guardians of this majestic wilderness and all the life it contains. In the months following John's transformative experience, the Redwood National Park's Ranger Canine program becomes a model for parks nationwide. John's leadership, combined with the dog's exceptional abilities, results in a significant decrease in poaching incidents and more successful rescue operations. The park sees an increase in visitors, drawn by the heartwarming story of the ranger and his canine team. 5 years later, John stands at the entrance of the park's new wildlife education center. Beside him, an aging but still spirited guardian watches as Hope's grandpuppies graduate from their training program. The center, born from John's vision, serves as a hub for conservation education and animal-assisted therapy, touching countless lives and fostering a deeper connection between humans and nature. As you reflect on John's journey, consider the transformative power of compassion and the profound connections we can forge with animals. How might you extend kindness to the creatures in your own life? Whether it's supporting animal rescue efforts, volunteering at a local shelter, or simply being mindful of wildlife in your area, remember that every act of empathy ripples outward, creating a more compassionate world for all beings.